Hi, Johnny Warrior here. I'm the senior instructor and owner of Thunderbird Outdoor Adventures. Today I want to bring you part 2 of our potable water sanitation series. Today we're going to be talking about bacteria of public health importance. This is by no means the broad spectrum of available infections during a wilderness event or a disaster, but these ones are specific to food, water, and soil contaminant. We're going to go ahead and discuss them, give you some symptoms of them, give you proper terminology, as well as some strategies in order to protect yourselves against it and prevent the disease in general. So I'm going to go ahead and start with one called Campylobacter. Two of the agents or sub-sero groups that are really responsible for this particular disease is Campylobacter jejuni and Campylobacter or C. coli, not to be confused with E. coli. These are agents that contribute to the most common form of traveler's diarrhea. So when you're out and about seeing the world, these are the ones that say, hey, don't make sure there's no ice in your drinks, or don't drink the water. Generally the diarrhea that's contracted through this, or when you're eating foreign foods, is Campylobacter. So the disease is mild in general for healthy adults. It's diarrhea, mild diarrhea, and generally contracted through cross-contamination of infected animal feces. So here in our waterways, this is what we're talking about, like downstream of a poultry or swine operation or a cattle operation where there's runoff and contaminating the water, or wild animals that are defecating and urinating on crossing, etc. This can be serious to the very young, to the very older geriatrics and neonates, right? As well as those that are immunosuppressed. The symptomology can be a lot more, compounding and cause some issues. This is very easily controlled through boiling the water, filtration devices, or chemical, like chlorine, bromine, like we discussed in part 1 in municipal. Your iodine treatment kits would definitely do this one as well when I'm talking about chemical. The next one I want to talk about is E. coli, Escherichia coli. Now this one is kind of odd because E. coli actually exists within our intestinal tract and our gut as common flora and as part of our digestive system. Where the complication occurs is when those colonies get kind of off balance and become, you have excessive growth of E. coli, the toxins are released and it can cause infections within the line. Some of the symptoms are, or some of the causes, what it can cause is gastroenteritis, UTIs, neonatal meningitis. Now, if it's left unchecked, it can progress into bowel necrosis, which is actually death of the tissue within the lower intestinal tracts. You can also get hemolytic uremia, which is where you get anemia, but you're also dealing with renal kidney failure. So the infection can cause some kidney failure. You can also get peritonitis. The perineum or peritonitis is the infection of the small or that thin tissue, connective tissue in your bowel. So whatever within your abdominal wall that connects muscle to organ, that's perineum. Okay. Peritonitis is when you get an infection within that tissue and it causes edema. It can also cause mastitis. Mastitis is an infection within the breast in females. Septicemia. Septicemia is a septic infection within your system in general. So, you know, it's a little bit more bloodborne. And it also does gram-negative pneumonia because it's a gram-negative anaerobic bacteria. When we talk about anaerobic and aerobic bacteria, anaerobic is a bacteria that oxygen becomes toxic to it, while aerobic is a bacteria that thrives in an oxygen-rich environment. These are some of the strategies that we can use in water purification or management in a lot of these bacteria in general. This one, E. coli, is very efficiently managed in boiling the water or filtration devices, as well as using chemical purification. The next one I want to talk about is Listeria. Listeria is Listeria monocytogenes. Okay, that's the serotype. It's a gram-positive, but it's also anaerobic. There's 17 known species of this one, or subspecies, subserogroups of Listeria. It causes a fatality rate of 20% due to two main clinical manifestations of sepsis and meningitis. Okay, like we said, sepsis is advanced infection within the blood, when the blood is actually infected. And meningitis is an infection along the meningeal wall of the spine. Okay, you've got a protective layer, a protective film around your spine and the lower base of your brain. This is very susceptible to certain types of infection, and it's called meningitis. This is common in soil and water, very common in soil and water. Cross-contamination is something that occurs very regularly. It's boiling water and filtration along with chemical treatment is highly effective on this. Salmonella is our next one. We have two subserogroups that we kind of focus on this, and this is Salmonella bangori, Salmonella enterica. Salmonella is also it's a gram-negative, very common cross-contamination from soil to water. It's a global type. You know, I mean, in the United States, this is something that we really can kind of contribute to mayonnaise and raw chicken, right? Well, you know, it's common flora in so much organic mass that cross-contamination in the water through animal operations and infected animal groups is extremely common. Some strains are the causations for typhoid and perityphoid. We're going to use that as another group and discuss that here a little bit later. But non-typhoidal salmonella has actually a 20 to 25% mortality rate. I want to say that's probably, although that percentage is out there as a standard, it's a lot lower in developing nations due to available medical treatment. So I'm going to say that 20 to 25% is really kind of focused towards developing nations and third world countries. So this is something here in the Philippines that we would want to take a look at, as well as other remote areas or third world, you know, or developing country areas. This is something that we would want to be cautiously aware of in the water systems. Filtration, boiling, and chemical treatment of the water are all standard ways of treating this particular bacteria. Let's talk about the big ones. The first one's going to be cholera. Vibrio cholerae. You know, the cholera is a pandemic issue. Developing countries do not have that issue or do not have current epidemics going on. But from my experience, I'm going to use Iraq as an experience. And the reason why it's under control is the municipal systems. Chlorine is extremely effective towards cholera. When I was in Iraq, along the Euphrates on both sides of, well, actually on the rural parts of both sides of Baghdad. When the ground war came in, it bombed and affected a lot of the municipal water support systems. So they were forced into drinking contaminated water. There was large epidemics, serious epidemics that were running up and down the Euphrates in a place where just, a few years before, cholera was totally unheard of in Iraq because of its advanced municipal water systems. So, I mean, think about how that could occur so easily and readily during a natural disaster here in the Philippines or any country that gets overloaded on the municipal water system. All it takes is like a water surge from a typhoon to cross-contaminate a well or a large municipal water supply, or contaminate, when those surges come up, it pushes water deep into the rivers as well as flood over into stagnant water systems. So it's very easy to see how this can get out of control. As well as here in the Philippines, this is an endemic disease. This is something that's very common here. Now, on an epidemic status, it's in check, but it does rear its ugly head on occasion. So the symptoms or the conditions that it causes is severe dehydration, a loss of electrolyte imbalance within the body. So the treatment isn't just antibiotics, it's a lot of IV therapy, lactated ringers, and piggyback with hydration, with electrolyte hydration salts. Symptoms are vomiting, and a key one is the diarrhea. The diarrhea is rice water diarrhea, so it looks like soggy Rice Krispies or gelatinous kind of white sheen material within the stool. Nothing else. It doesn't even really look like stool. So that's one of the big symptoms or the big classic telltale signs of cholera. Now in emerging countries that have good medical systems, the mortality rate of cholera is about 5% when there's available medical support where they can get the antibiotic and the IV therapy treatment. But it can get as high as 50% in developing countries or third world countries that don't have proper medical support. So you have a disaster event, typhoon come in, your medical systems are overloaded. The rural communities are left to stand alone, and you can see how this could quickly get out of hand and cause some serious mortality rates within the country. The next disease that we're going to discuss is dysentery, and there's two types of dysentery. There's bacillary and there's amoebic. All right, and they're two different agents. Okay, Entomoeba histolytica is the amoebic type, and Shigella dysenteriae is the bacillary type. Now, dysentery is not really, let's not say that, I don't want to, it's a disease, right? But it's a collective type of gastroenteritis. What tells this differently from classic gastroenteritis, right, and gastroenteritis when we're dealing with cholera is, cholera has its telltale sign of rice water stools. Here, when we talk about dysentery is diarrhea with blood, okay? Some of the other symptoms, it's going to be abdominal pain, fever, how do I explain it? And there's a sensation that you can't empty your bowel. I know it's like a hard feeling within the lower intestine after you evacuate with diarrhea. And it's critical to get this in check because it can progress and infect brain, lung, and liver. And when it gets into those organs, obviously, at an advanced state, the mortality rate is a lot higher versus the success rate of treatment. Now, what's unique with dysentery, and I want to teach this as another class, but I'm going to give you a little bit of tidbit here specific to the Philippines. The kapok tree, all right? And up until like 1946, the key treatment for dysentery before the introduction of antibiotics, or they really started going common antibiotics, was the seed, the bark, and the leaves of the kapok tree was boiled into a tea or ground down into powder into a tablet form, and that was the treatment for dysentery. Extremely effective. So you know, there's most of these disorders have natural herbal remedy, right? Herbal medicinal treatments to it. This one, because this was specific and very obvious here in the Philippines, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a freebie on that one. Filtration, boiling the water, and chemical treatment are extremely effective for dysentery. And the next one I want to talk about is typhoid. Okay, Salmonella typhi. This is where we said that when we talk about Salmonella that we were going to talk about it a little bit later. Okay, it's not. I don't want it to be confused with typhus. You know, that's a vector-borne disease from rat population that's transferred that way. This is gram-negative. The symptoms include weakness, abdominal pain, constipation, headache. You know, I know that's kind of like a generalized aspect of it, but it has a 25% mortality rate without treatment, 4% with treatment. Okay, this is strongly epidemic. This has the ability to become a strong epidemic, and it's endemic here in the Philippines. You know, this is another one just like cholera that's in the waterways. It's controlled through the municipal water supplies, through proper boiling, etc. But this could become epidemic just like that when we talk about a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. This has a significant capacity to wipe out a lot of the population. This also because of the bloody stools, what it will do is, and the loss of fluids through dehydration, it causes an imbalance and a loss of the salt in the blood specific. Okay. The term, when you start reducing the salt and you start reducing the volume of blood in the system, right? It's called hypovolemic shock. So that's what the individual in advanced stages of the disease will suffer from, is hypovolemic shock. Now, this disease is easily treated with filtration devices, boiling the water, and chemical tablet treatments. Now, the last two that I want to talk about are kind of off the chart. Now, you'll see them labeled on your filters, and that's why we're going to discuss this specifically. And you're going to be like, what? So one of them is theoretical, and the other one's possible that a couple outbreaks occurred through cross-contaminated water supply. The first one is the Legionnaires Disease, and there's 5 different serogroup of the bacteria in that one, and I'll list that right there. This is the one that has a possible cross-contamination outbreak on it. But generally speaking, what it is it's an aerosolized, it's an infection that's caused by stagnant water that's been aerosolized and inhaled. Okay? So, I don't know if you guys know what a swamp cooler is, but that's where water runs down a filter and the air is pulled through it. Well, there's a pond on a lot of those devices, and if left untreated, the bacterium grows exponentially in it. Some of the other you know, like the sprayers in grocery stores that they'll spray over vegetables. That's another one. It's a circulating pump, and if you don't treat or clean out the water reservoir, that reservoir, the water in that reservoir will actually become contaminated with Legionella. So it's kind of a key. Cleanliness, correct maintenance, chemical sterilization are all kind of key in the control of this one. It's generally transmitted through aerosolized water. Okay, it can be aspirated. You know, let's say you're in a small pond that has gross contamination, and you can ingest it. A little bit of a unique ability of the Legionella is that its ability to do an intercellular, become an intercellular parasite to an amoeba. All right, so if you got amoeba within the water, then you got Legionella in the water, it can become an intercellular parasite to the amoeba that will cause a biofilm to start to occur on top of the water source. And that biofilm can actually, first of all, you got the amoeba, possibility of amoebic dysentery in there, but you also have the possibility of Legionellosis as well, or Legionnaires Disease. The reason why it's called Legionnaires Disease is back in the 1970s, there was a large, in Philadelphia, there was a large Legionnaire or American Legion convention, and 29 people died from a high infection rate. You know, so since then they've been able to serotype it and make it the causative agent to several outbreaks globally. So this is not an endemic or an epidemic, current epidemic disease, or a current pandemic type disease like cholera or some of the other diseases that we've already discussed. But it's something that's got common flora within the stagnant water systems in our waterway, and we need to really be vigilant against it. Filtration, it's very susceptible to chemical sterilization, and boiling the water will also be extremely effective. The last one is MTB, or tuberculosis. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is a theoretical contamination. It's waterborne. It is. It's contaminated through aerosolization. Somebody sneezes, and each drop is actually a potential contaminant. It has the ability to infect somebody, just a single drop of aerosolized sneeze. So when you're talking about that kind of micro aerosolation, contamination of water, and in a aquatic environment, it does last an extremely long time. Not hours, but we're talking about weeks. So outside of the body, it has the ability to maintain an environment for positive infection. So has there been any waterborne tuberculosis? None that I know of in my studies in the past. And just to make sure, I went ahead and contacted both WHO and the CDC regarding tuberculosis specifically, and there is no file for a waterborne infection or outbreak of tuberculosis. That doesn't mean that we don't need to be aware of it. Also, you're going to see it on a lot of filters. They'll say, hey, this filter has the capacity to filter out tuberculosis. It's not the most smallest bacteria, so I would hope so. One that we're going to go ahead and not discuss under bacteria is botulism. I'm going to go ahead and discuss that in the toxins, because it's not actually the bacteria that causes the issue. It's toxins that the bacteria released in certain environmental conditions within the body. So we're going to discuss that at the end. Strategies relative to bacteria, taking water that's bouncing off a rock. Okay, if you have small waterways that have small water falls, and I'm talking about from one rock to another, that causes bubbles to occur, that's aeration. Now, most of the bacteria that we've discussed today is anaerobic. A good portion of them, only 1 or 2 of them are aerobic. So taking water from a part of a stream or moving water source that has a lot of already aerated water is going to cut down a lot of the potential. It's a strategy. Also, making sure that you're not taking water from or taking water to be filtered, boiled, or if you have to do a direct drink, doing a mechanical clean, taking water, 2 feet away from the edge, making sure that you're not getting any of the contaminations that has a tendency to settle along the river or the creek edge. Don't drink out of stagnant water if you can. If you have to, you need to make sure that you are either boiling it or using a filtration. I'm not a huge, the use of chlorine for staged water sources in a preparatory action, like if you're prepping for an event and you've got large containers that have 50 to 100 gallons of water each and they're piped together, and you've got a distribution system. I'm all about chlorine and anything with a distribution system, and standard household bleach, and bringing it up to that 0.20 or that 0.2 mark for storage, and it'll settle down somewhere at that 0.02 to 0.04 mark for consumption. But I think that's smart. But if we're talking about out in the field, doing some dirt time, or you're egressing or whatever you might be doing, it doesn't taste good. Those iodine tablets, even with the post cleaning tablet that's supposed to break down the iodine and make it a little bit more palatable. And if your water doesn't taste good, you're not going to consume it the way you need to. So I'm all about boiling and filters. I filter mine, and if I'm down in an area and I'm cooking, yes, I'll boil. That saves the filter. I do have a backup in using the iodine tablets, just in case I lose a filter, break a filter, or I have a failure. But again, boiling the water, 30 minutes, roll and boil, let her go, and you'll kill everything. You can double it up too. But see, what I'll do is I'll boil my water and then stage it for the following day, and then consume the filtered water that I had. So I'll consume everything in my canteens, boil my water, fill my canteens. That's for my next day. And then, boil some more for cooking or cleaning or whatever. All right. So if you have any questions or comments specifically about what we've discussed, I know we got a little bit technical here. I needed to, because I need you guys to understand the importance of this bacteria, what this bacteria can do to you, and why you need to make sure that you're doing proper sanitation strategies on the water that you're consuming. But if you have any comments or questions, you can PM me or just put a comment down here. I really appreciate the comments, because it helps me better myself when I'm teaching these classes, as well as giving better training videos. The next one, in part 3, we're going to talk about viruses specifically, and we're going to come up with a couple strategies in really defending ourselves against waterborne viruses. So I want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you already haven't. Like the video. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you think this is totally sucks. But either way, I would appreciate comments, subscriptions, and feedback. Have a good evening, guys. Thank you.